What's up, big ballers, shot callers? Welcome from the grid to the Rim Sports Talk Show. Big Ken here, joined by my best friend and co-host Monty Brown. What's going on, brother?
What's up? I'm back, man. Missed you
I'm
guys the
glad to see
past
you
couple of
back.
shows, man.
You did. You missed a couple. You missed a couple of good shows. Myself, Dwayne, and Brandon were holding the fort down for you.
Yeah, excellent. Good job, all of you. I watched every show, man. Yeah, excellent.
Yes, we had good shows, really good shows. I think we covered March Madness pretty well. But yeah, let's get into the topics of today's show. So obviously, today we're gonna cover, we're gonna do men and women's championship game recaps. For most of the March Madness, we were only talking about the men's side, but last show we got into the women a little bit, how much attention the women have been getting lately. So I wanted to get into that again because women are really drawing a lot of national attention for women's college basketball. Sport is really growing. But first of all, I want to say congratulations to UConn men winning
Yes.
back-to-back national titles. First team to do it since Florida in 2006 and 7.
I
Also,
called it. I
yep,
called it.
you did call it.
Woo.
For some reason, I thought it went back to UCLA way back in the 60s and 70s, but
Yeah,
it was in 2006 and 7. I think I typed that in wrong. And I think it's multiple national championships, like I
yeah,
said, not just
yeah,
two in a row. Like UCLA won like 7 in a row or something.
yeah.
So, also congratulations to the South Carolina women. They've
Oh,
won.
yes.
They are a team, boy. They have a great
Yeah.
coach in Don Staley. They are tough, tough, tough. They've only lost 3 games in the past 3 or 4 seasons. 3 games in 3 or 4 years. I mean, they are hard to beat.
Yeah.
But also want to recognize the women's game because women, for the first time ever, they got more TV views than the men. The women's national championship game had over 18 million views. 18 million views. 18 million. 18 million views.
Wow.
Men's had 14.9 million, so just shy of 50 million. So the men's still did really well. Like
Man,
both of them did well. But women's was off the charts.
man, it's goes to show how that, like you mentioned, how that sports growing, the popularity of it. You got the stories with Caitlin Clark, the revenge factor with South Carolina, losing to them last year and playing
Yes,
them in the finals this year. Uh, so yeah, it made for good TV.
absolutely.
Controversy with former players, former current WNBA players, former college players, which we'll get to later. I mean, yeah, it's growing. Not only that, some real good women basketball players. You got Juju Watkins at USC.
Yes.
Might
Rising
end up being the
star.
best player, could be the best player ever when it's all said and done.
Yeah, could
Could be,
be.
and she's only a freshman.
Yeah, she said she
I'll tell
could
you
be the
this.
next Caitlin Clark. That's how good she is, and she did
Yeah,
not disappoint her freshman year.
yeah,
You're absolutely right. And
yeah.
they had a
So
deep tournament run, so I think the Elite Eight or something. So
yeah,
they got far. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of good players. I mean, we wouldn't be surprised to see this South Carolina team running back next year. They're loaded,
they are
loaded.
loaded. They went
So
nine
yeah,
deep against Iowa, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. Yeah, they are very talented. But before we get into the women's game recap, but the one last thing I'll say in the opening is the men's game overall as a whole for March Madness still is getting a lot more views, and that's not to throw shade to the women. Cause I looked up that stat too, but before the Final Four and like Elite Eight games, where the women's ratings went through the roof, because the Elite Eight game was of course the rematch, another revenge factor, Iowa versus LSU, like you're talking about Monty, another big reason why they're watching. They want to see Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark rematch, and then,
mhm,
but as a whole though, the men's games drew about 10 million viewers per game, and
mhm.
for the first couple of rounds and through the Sweet 16. And then women only got like about 2 million views. So that's why I think the women's game still needs to evolve and grow. Because I mentioned this in a previous show, like where it's kind of easy to get to like the Elite Eight to kind of pick the women's games.
Right, right,
Um, they don't really have any really good mid majors that the men's do to compete with the blue bloods. And I think that's where the difference is because there's a lot
right.
of upsets in the first couple of rounds with the men's game because because the mid-majors and the men's are starting to play really well. They're really coming on strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's, to me, in my opinion, that's where the difference is in views in the first couple rounds. There's just not the excitement early on in the women's game yet until it gets later. So
Yeah, you're right. Those first couple of rounds, it's a lot of blowouts. Not too many close games, like you mentioned. And yeah, once it evens out, it'll catch up with the men. If it does even out, who knows? But yeah, the top, I'd say what 10, 15 teams, they're just on another level compared to those bottom teams that in the tournament.
yeah,
That's a big difference.
to me that's the difference. Let's get on to the women's championship game, South Carolina versus Iowa. Like you mentioned, Monty, this was a revenge game for South Carolina because last year, Caitlin Clark, and the Iowa Hawkeyes knocked them out in the semifinals in the Final Four. So they were definitely looking for some revenge.
Yes.
First quarter, man, Iowa got off to such a fast start. It was like ridiculous. Like, oh my God, they are ready to play. They were on fire. But then you see, USC, they calmed down. Not USC, I'm sorry, South Carolina, they calmed down and they got back into the game. And they're actually ahead by 2 or 3 points at halftime. They had a really big second quarter against Iowa. And you got to give that girl, Raven Johnson, a lot of credit. She was really G'ing up Caitlin Clark pretty well. But
she had a lot to prove. And she did her best on it. I mean, Clark's going to get her points. I mean, Clark's not a player you're going to stop. But man, she did better than anybody I've seen.
Yeah, she picked her pocket a couple of times. She got that really big steal for in the first half to go up by 3 points. It was a 1 point game, but South Carolina had a big 5 or 6 point run right at the end of the half.
Right.
They go up by 3, and the steal was the very last thing that happened right before halftime. But you're right, Caitlin Clark is going to get hers, though. I mean, this is how good Caitlin Clark is. Some people are throwing a lot of shade on her about how she played in the national championship game, but she still had 30 points. Yeah, she got D'd up, and she did get the ball stolen from her a couple of times, and she was missing shots, and she wasn't at her best. But that's how good. That's when you know you're there. Like when you don't have your best game and you still got 30 points. If that was me, I might have 5 points. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I was playing like
probably
that,
would have scored nothing. Shoot.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's how good she is. We're talking about how badly she played, and she's got 30 freaking points. I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, that's the Caitlin Clark factor right there. But let's get into some stats, man. So obviously Caitlin Clark is leading the way like she always does, 30 points. Her partner in crime, Kate Martin, had a good game, 16 points. Hannah Stokey had 11 points. Another starter, Sydney Affolter, had 12 points. They had 4 people in double digits, and usually that's good enough for Iowa to win. But South Carolina is just that good, just that tough. I mean, Iowa had 4 players in double digits, so it wasn't just Caitlin Clark alone. Other players stepped up for Iowa. But they're all starters. I think the biggest difference, my dad might disagree with me because my dad's a big Iowa fan. He was a little bit upset with me. But I said, I don't think Iowa has enough. They didn't, because their bench got scored 37-0.
Right.
I don't want Dad. I don't want to misuse your words the wrong way. But I think my dad told me in a text message. He said they just weren't. He said they're just missing shots. Like Iowa has a good bench or has good role players. He said they're just missing shots. That's what he told me, but I think that's where me and him had a little bit of a disagreement. But I could have been misunderstanding him. So Dad, if I misunderstand you, I apologize. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we were talking about back and forth though, But the Iowa bench did not score nothing, did not score anything. Where I was talking about with my dad also, and just in general for Iowa in general was some of the role players for Iowa are some of the starting 5. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
because you have a couple of scorers that in every team, men's and women's, you always have a couple. You got people that can score than some other stars or more role players. Maybe they're there for defense. Maybe they're there for rebounding. Maybe they're there for assist. So, but I do think Iowa needs to. They got to develop more of a bench because they only played 2 girls off the bench. Neither one of them scored, obviously. One girl played 13 minutes. She relieved Stokey. She was the other big person, and she was playing the center position. Her name's 44. I think her last name is Grady.
Mhm.
She did play 13 minutes, which is pretty good in a 40-minute game. And Hannah Stuelke played 27. But the point I'm trying to make, though, is almost every other single Iowa starter played the whole entire game.
Yes.
I mean, that's where I think Iowa needs to get a little bit better. But at the same time, you can say Iowa really overachieved in a lot of ways. I think with the team they have, are they a bad team? No, but without Caitlin Clark, they don't get nowhere near the Final Four, in my opinion.
No.
They might still make the tournament, but they won't make a deep run. That's just my thoughts. South Carolina, Camila Cardoso just dominated on both sides of the ball. 15 points, 17 rebounds. Chloe Kitts had 11 points. Tahina Papau, the transfer from Oregon, had 14 points. And the girl that really stood out was that freaking freshman off the bench. Tessa Johnson was absolutely a dagger.
Yes.
Iowa, 19 points off the bench. I mean, that was what won.
Yes. That was
There
the
were two
difference.
things that won the game. Her scoring 19 points off the bench and the dominant play of Camila Cardoso was the two factors that why South Carolina won, in my opinion. What do you got in this game, Monty?
Man, just you said it all, man. Tessa Johnson, we're just talking about the bench, coming off the bench, leading that team scoring. She's a freshman. Man, that's just a credit of Dawn Staley, how great of a coach she is. I mean, easily a freshman can fold under a game like that during the headlights. No, sir. She went out there like she's been there before. And that's the credit of Dawn Staley, just preparing the team and just getting them ready for a game like that.
Yep.
And Dawn Staley's a great coach. I might see her coaching the men one of these days. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, and I have no doubt she would do a good job.
Absolutely. And Don Staley is a great coach. Great coach.
Yeah.
But yes, South Carolina is just so deep. See, they could play 9 players.
Yeah.
And Iowa only went 7. And and the one girl for Iowa who was the 7th player to come into the game, she only played 5 minutes. Like I said, the other girl that was relieving, Hannah Stuelke, she played 13 minutes, but those are pretty good minutes. Hannah Stuelke got her fair share of rest and played 27 minutes. So, but the other girl only played 5, and so they didn't really have much to go to. Iowa was missing their point guard, but that's no excuse. Molly Davis got hurt in the last game of the year against Ohio State. I think she was more of a floor general point guard type of player. She didn't really look for a shot too much because she only averaged 6 points a game. I don't know if it would have made a difference for Iowa winning the game, but obviously it hurts them we don't have, your point guard. Gabby Marshall played. Maybe Gabby Marshall was the 6th man or the 6th girl, and this Molly Davis girl was a star. But Gabby Marshall's been a star for a while, and they both average about 6 points a game. I looked at both their stats, so they're even in their stats, and they've both been even in their playing time throughout the whole season. It's almost like they've been sharing the point guard position for the whole entire season, even before Molly Davis got hurt. So because their minutes are very, very even.
Iowa did what I thought they would do to win the game. The key for them to win the game was to jump out on South Carolina.
They did exactly. They got a great start.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, if they want to win this game, they're doing exactly the right thing. But man, that's just a deep team they played. Too deep at each position. The bench could probably have their own team and do well themselves. So it just wasn't enough. I mean, that team's too good. Like you mentioned, Cardoso, excellent, dominant. I mean, no answers for it. None. Blocking shots.
They were boxing around.
She's
still getting rebounds. She's just bigger and stronger than that.
Yeah. More rebounds than points. She has 17 rebounds, 15 points. That's crazy. Like we talked about earlier, the bench player, Johnson, she averages 6.6 points a game and she scores 19 in the championship. That's coming from a freshman. So I'll be watching this team a lot next year when I get a chance. They might win it back.
They are loaded.
Yeah.
No disrespect for Iowa, but I don't see Iowa getting back to the Final Four next year. I don't know how good they're going to be. I'm not saying they're going to be horrible, but I don't think they're going to get very far. They're going to have a huge loss, unfortunately, with Clark going to the WNBA. Hannah Stuelke is a rising star for Iowa. She's only a sophomore this year. I really like her, but she is very inconsistent. But She is good. And she plays hard. I like her. She's the best player I see coming back from Iowa that I know of. But I don't know. My dad knows about Iowa much, much better than I do. But from what I saw in the several games I've seen this year, she's the best returning player they got coming back.
Right.
So because Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin, the second best player on the team all year long, they're both done. So it was Kate Martin was a fifth year senior. Yeah, she's leaving. So yeah, they're missing missing some huge players, but you never know. Iowa does have a really good coach too. Lisa Bladur is
Yes.
a very good coach.
Yeah.
Um,
I became a fan of hers too. Yeah.
yeah,
A
she
real good
handles
coach.
stuff really well in the media. I like her a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she gave, one thing I like about her, she gave, South Carolina and Dawn Staley a ton of credit, saying they have a great team over there, and
Yeah.
congratulations to Dawn Staley. Like she was very respectful, but so was Dawn Staley, and we'll get to that in a minute. Dawn Staley, complete class act, but
Yeah.
yeah, but we'll see. Because I think Iowa's been to 10 Sweet 16s for women's basketball, and four in a row with Caitlin Clark.
Oh, so they
So,
got a
and
good
Cardoso's
program.
been
Good.
there, not Cardoso, I'm sorry, but Lisa Bladur, the coach, has been there for 24 years. So you can say, so the four with Caitlin Clark to make the 10, but then you could say before that she got there 6 times without Caitlin Clark in 20 years. So that's not bad. So
No.
they're basically getting there they're getting the Sweet 16 basically once every 3 or 4 years without Caitlin Clark. So
Mhm. Well, if I'm not mistaken, Caitlin Clark's from Iowa as well. She decided to stay home.
yeah.
I'm not sure how the high school basketball, women's basketball programs are in Iowa, but maybe this will help that program. Maybe some
Oh, they're gonna get some
ladies there
recruits.
will want to stay in
Like I'm
Iowa
saying,
and
we don't know yet.
continue that.
Yeah, we don't know how Iowa's going to be, but I know they're going to really miss Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin. But
Yeah,
we don't know. Like I know Hannah Stokey is the best returning player, but we
yeah,
don't know who we will be going there in the near future. But
yeah,
we'll see in 2 or 3 years what Iowa's head coach can do with some incoming talent. And I know
yeah.
Caitlin Clark has put Iowa women's basketball on the map, so they could get some really good players that
Right.
the coach can develop. But
Yeah,
we'll see. But I know, like you said, South Carolina is loaded. I would not be surprised if they win a national championship game this year. I think we have no doubts about South Carolina, but we don't know what's going to happen with Iowa,
right,
yet.
right.
But let's get into Caitlin Clark.
All right.
This is what I've been waiting for. Monty knows I've been talking Monty and everyone's ear off about this the past 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, I have like 20 paragraphs of text messages to prove it too.
Yeah. From who?
I have 20 paragraphs of text messages from you to prove
Yes.
it.
I went crazy on this subject. I'm very passionate about this subject.
That's cool. Cool. Nice.
Um, Caitlin Clark, there's a lot of, I won't say controversy around her. That's not a good word, but some people are giving Caitlin Clark her flowers and some people are not. There's a lot of, I'll say there's some maybe resistance, maybe, I don't know if it's white and black. I don't know what it is. It might be jealousy. Um, But there's some things here. There's some things there where it seems like she's getting a lot of shade from some WNBA players, like current and former. Um, so I don't know what that's all about. But I've been researching it a lot lately. Like Diana Taurasi, her and Sue Bird have a show together, I guess. And obviously Diana Taurasi is a great, great player. She played at
Oh yeah.
UConn, won multiple national championships.
Yeah.
And that's another thing to piggyback on Iowa. See, Iowa does not have that kind of team where they're loaded like a South Carolina. That's why I'm saying they've overachieved when you really look at this thing. Because UConn women were loaded back then, like winning crazy
Yeah.
amount of national championships. So yes, Diana Taurasi is a great, great player, and she's also won multiple gold medals for women's basketball. So obviously she has the right to have an opinion, just like anyone else. So that's fine. But it seems like she's throwing Caitlin Clark a lot of shade. I don't know if that's because obviously the controversial call in the UConn Iowa game in the Final Four. Maybe some of it's because of that, because the call at the end with the moving screen. Some people have feelings about that. And obviously, Taurasi is a UConn player,
Yes.
a former UConn player. So maybe that's some of it.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I think
Yeah.
that's a
But she was just saying things like, well, Caitlin Clark is playing against 18 and 19-year-old girls. I'm paraphrasing here, and
yes.
when she goes to WNBA, like she's playing against a lot more better talent than that. That's basically what she's saying. Like, she's saying like she hasn't proven anything yet in the WNBA, which is true because she hasn't played a single minute yet in the WNBA, but she will be here soon. The season's right around the corner. But so I understand. I think Trossi is partially correct when it comes to that because we don't know what's going to happen yet with the WNBA, but I have no doubt in my mind that Caitlin Clark will play well because she's got too many intangibles. I mean, not only can she shoot, she can pass. She has great she has great court vision. She's a great teammate. She gets her other players the ball. She makes people around her better. If she's having an off scoring night, she could do other things to help this team she's going to. I think the Indiana Fever is more likely the place she's going to be than everyone thinks she's going to be the number one pick. So there's other things she can do besides shoot. Obviously, scoring is her best. Obviously, shooting is her best, attribute. But she has other things though besides this. You know, so Diana Taurasi is throwing a lot of shade. Lynette Woodard, she played back in the late 70s and early 80s for the University of Kansas. And when Caitlin Clark broke the scoring record earlier this year, she was trying to say that she didn't think Caitlin Clark really broke her record because she was saying things like, well, we didn't have a 3-point line back then. We shot with a men's basketball. So she said, what was her words? And I'm paraphrasing. She's like,
yeah, that's about right.
She was saying you can't duplicate what you can't duplicate. That's what she said. You can't compare it, which is partially true. But at the same time, like Caitlin Clark did break your record. At the end of the day, whether they were able to shoot 3-pointers or not, Caitlin Clark broke your record. That's the way it is. Like she broke it. So I didn't understand that. But in Lynette Woodard's defense, she retracted her statement. She did say Caitlin Clark is the scoring champion. So she did the right thing. She changed her statement a few days later. Iowa, you gotta give Iowa's team and coach and their fan base a lot of credit because actually Iowa reached out to Lynette Woodard and invited her to Iowa's senior day for the girls. She accepted the invitation.
Wow.
Iowa recognized her at the Iowa senior day. They gave her a standing ovation.
Nice.
So Iowa fans, good on you. I think that was a big reason why Lynette Woodard actually retracted her statement and gave her flowers. So good job, Iowa fans, showing class. Because Lynette Woodard, I think she feels a certain way because she played back in the old days and there wasn't this kind of attention, and she feels a certain way about that. She's prideful. I think she's prideful. So. And another thing is she didn't get a chance to play in the WNBA. The WNBA didn't exist in 1981 when she graduated from college. So she doesn't have these same kind of opportunities in front of her. That might be some of it too, Yeah, but she did retract her statement, so good on her. And good on Iowa for showing a lot of class, inviting her to their senior day and giving her flowers because she's a pioneer. She was one of the pioneers of women's college basketball when no one was watching the women play. So yeah, I think she's got feelings about that. Cheryl Swoops, said she retracted her statement because she said that Caitlin Clark played for 5 years. That's the only reason why she broke the record. But no, Caitlin Clark did not play for 5 years. She only played for 4. She's not a fifth-year senior. She played for 4 years. But she retracted her statement too. So, but the original statements is what people are thinking about, though. Even though they retracted her statements, like the original statements are sticking out in some people's minds, I guess you can say. Is it about white or black? Is it about jealousy? Is it about being overlooked? I don't know. It's all these things. What do you think about this, Monty?
First thing you asked is it about white or black? As far as WNBA players or former players, I don't think that's the case. I think it's ex UConn players, ex I'm not forgot which shows Swoops played, but I think it might be a little shade with them. Uh, like you mentioned, the lady who had the record earlier, no 3-point line, played with the men's basketball. Uh, the game's going to evolve. I mean, if someone ever breaks her record, who knows? There might be a 4-point line. I mean, that'll be 20 years from now. Who knows? But the race part, I think maybe it's more of the fans. She comes from an area, Iowa, where let's just say it's mostly white.
Yeah,
It is. I mean,
absolutely.
it is. Uh, Her name escapes me. From LSU. She's from Louisiana.
Angel Reese.
Angel Reese. I believe she's from that area, or LA, or something like that, where it's uh, mostly black people. I mean, they're going to root for that person that they can relate to. We saw that a lot with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
Yes.
Larry Bird, French Lick, Indiana. I mean, Magic, uh, Michigan, from the Michigan area, went to the Lakers. So I think it's a part of people who can relate to that person, rooting for that person. I think that's as far as the race part goes. Um, but I don't know. It's touchy, but it's reality. I mean, it's not all of it, but yeah, it's of course it's part of it, and we got to talk about it because that could be the case there.
Yeah, I think we should talk about it, and me and you should talk about it because
Yeah,
obviously I'm a white guy, you're a black guy, we're best friends. We've known each other for 30 years, and I'm glad I can have a sounding board with you, being
yeah,
a black man, and what your thoughts are on certain things. And we talk about this the right way, where we don't get mad at each other. We don't like say a bunch of crazy things. Like no
yeah,
matter whether we agree or disagree, I know me and you are still gonna walk away best friends, and
yeah.
you know what I mean. So I'm glad we're talking about this. And we should be showing people the right way of how to handle differences and not get all crazy and say crazy
Right,
things and get, because people just get upset, and then
right,
when you get upset, crazy words fly. Sometimes you mean it, sometimes you don't.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, there was one when during the pregame, and I'll mention there. There was, like I talked to you during the pregame. Um, There was one black social media site that I told you about where they were throwing some shade, and it was about race. But of course, obviously, I don't think every black person thinks that. That's just ridiculous. This is just one social media outlet, But
Mm,
they were saying things, and I'm paraphrasing here again, but they were saying things to the fact about they feel the black race is being disrespected because every time people are jumping on Caitlin Clark saying she's evolved the game. They feel a certain way about that because there's been a lot of former black players that come before Caitlin Clark, so they feel a certain way about it because, like, like there was Lynette Woodard, like we already mentioned. There was, you know, Cheryl Miller. There's all kinds of other really good, black women athletes that came before Caitlin Clark. But like you said, I think unfortunately the game just wasn't as people just didn't watch the women's game back then, unfortunately, and they didn't have the WNBA. And Kaden Clark has been a part of the process of evolving the game. They've
right.
all they've all evolved the game. Kaden Clark has just evolved it further. I would say that, like, because now
Yeah,
people are paying attention to college basketball because of Caitlin Clark.
yeah,
Like, for whatever reason, the last 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden, like the light switch just went on with women's college basketball, and Caitlin Clark and other players it came on. But Caitlin Clark is probably the biggest reason, but there is other really good players like we mentioned at the beginning of the show: Juju Watkins, Angel Reese, Camila
yes,
Cardoso, Paige Buchers or Buckers from UConn, who's
yeah.
also
Big fan of hers. Yes,
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of really good players right now in women's college basketball, and like I said, Juju Watkins is going to carry the torch, for the next couple of years,
yeah,
and she might break all kinds of crazy records because they're saying she could be the next Caitlin Clark. Like
yeah,
she's that good, and I seen her play today. Like, dang, she is good. Like, man, she could really
yeah,
move. She's a really good ball handler, man. She's got good
yeah.
skills. Man, she could move and she could shoot. So it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, unfortunately, this one black social media site felt a certain way about it. But don't agree with what they're saying, but
No.
it is what it
Uh,
is. But they feel a certain way, obviously.
yeah, I didn't read this either, but based on what you're saying, I don't agree with them either. Like I mentioned to you earlier, Caitlin Clark's getting this press because she's breaking records. Pistol Pete's record. Nobody's done that but her. So of course she's going to get the press. She's going to get her flowers on that. Yeah, so yeah, it's well deserved. Black, white, purple, whatever. I mean, whoever would break that record is going to get the same attention she had.
Yeah, it shouldn't be about color at all. It should not be about color. It
Yeah,
should just be about the player. Player,
right.
absolutely. Um, yep, absolutely. And that's why I was talking to my neighbor Rick about this, and he also mentioned Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. So it's funny you bring that up. But there's also one thing he said that I want to bring up. He has a very good point. He said this just shows you how good of a coach and how good of a class act Dawn Staley is, because Dawn Staley immediately gave Caitlin Clark her
Oh
flowers.
yeah, yes.
Right at the end of the game, during the interview, post-game interview, she immediately had nothing but good things to say about Caitlin Clark. Nothing but good things to say, saying that she said she carried a heavy load for women's basketball,
Yeah,
helped
and she did.
evolve the game. Do you know how much attention Caitlin Clark had, how much pressure she had every game to be great? And she showed
Yeah,
out every game.
yeah.
I would not be able to do that. Like, the spotlight was on her every game, and she always had good games.
Yeah, it's
Always.
tough. Yeah,
So it was amazing. It was something to watch. Like,
yeah.
it got me interested in women's college basketball. I ain't gonna lie. I never said. Of course, I watched college basketball in the past because I'm a big basketball nut. So I
Hmm.
have watched some women's college basketball on and on throughout the years, but I don't really watch it that much. I ain't gonna lie, but since Caitlin Clark, yeah, I started like tuning in a little bit.
Yeah,
More than I was in the past. Put it that way.
yeah.
So
Me too.
yeah, and because of other players too. But yeah, good job to Dawn Staley, class act, because she could
Yes.
have said something other than that, and that could have made controversy, and she did not say that. Um, and another thing, you also gotta give a lot of credit to Caitlin Clark because like how she handles herself on all this attention. She always seemed to handle herself really well. So Caitlin Clark is a class act too, in my opinion, with
Mhm.
how she handles herself.
Yes.
Because what so during the press conference, one of the news reporters tells Caitlin Clark, like, "Hey, I don't know if you know, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but Dawn Staley, mentioned you in the post game interview, and she had nothing but good things to say about you, et cetera, et cetera." And immediately, Kate Clark said, "Well, that means a lot to her, because she knows Dawn Staley is one of the pioneers of women's college basketball."
Oh yes.
So that's what I'm saying. Caitlin Clark recognizes these players before. She knows, like, yeah, that means a lot because Dawn Staley, you know, played long before I did. And she was a great player back in her prime. Playing for the University of Virginia. And Dawn Staley did play in the WNBA a little bit, but she had to wait like 5 or 6 years. I think she graduated from Virginia like 91, 92, and the WNBA didn't come around to 97.
Hmm.
So she did play a little bit, but she also missed 5 or 6, years where she could have had some more numbers in
Yeah.
the WNBA. So you gotta
Yeah.
give
She was a
Caitlin
great
Clark.
point guard. Great point guard.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, she was quick,
Yeah.
and I like her. I think
Yeah.
there's something that attracts. There's something about Dawn Staley that's attractive to me. I like her, man. Yeah, she's my girl, man.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, something about her. I just like her, man. Um, but let's get into. I know you're running pressed on time, Monty. But let's get
Oh, we're
into
good. We're good.
the men's championship game though. Purdue, Purdue and UConn. Great first half game. Great first half. Purdue and UConn were going back and forth the whole entire first half. The big man matchup with Zach Edey and
Yes.
Klingen was a very intriguing matchup. You know, there was times when Zach Edey dominated Klingen, but then there was times where Klingen played some really good defense
Mhm.
and gave Zach Edey a hard time. So it was good action. But at the end of the day, UConn does what they always do in the second half. And Brandon, our co-host, has mentioned
Yes.
this multiple times. UConn is a second half team. They make really good halftime adjustments. Their coach is
Yes.
brilliant at halftime adjustments, and the exact same thing happened this game. So UConn runs away with it in the second half and ends up winning the game by 15 points. Never looked back in the second half. They got off to a fast start in the second half, never looked back. But Zach Edey did have 37 points and 10 rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
Braden Smith had 12 points, but only 2 players for Purdue in double figures. No one else showed up for Purdue. I mean, nobody. Lance Jones had 5 points. Fletcher Laurie had 0 points. And I've been kind of talking about Laurie's had a really good sophomore year, and I really didn't know what to think about him, because last year he did not show up as a freshman at all. This year it looked like he was showing up, but for whatever reason in this game he did not show up. Only 2 players for Purdue in double figures. A couple of players did have a couple points. Like one guy had 2 points, someone else had like 4 points, and but Purdue is a little bit similar to the Iowa women, where they just don't have that bench yet. That hurt them, just like it hurt the Iowa women against South Carolina. I think it's very, very similar. That killed Purdue. That absolutely killed Purdue. No other contributions at all. But UConn, we got to talk about our boy Tristan Newton from El Paso. 20 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds.
Nice, solid.
MVP.
Yes.
MVP of the championship game, comes from El Paso, played at Burgess High School. Me and you know that high school very well.
Oh, very well. Yes, we do.
Very proud of Tristan Newton. I was going for Purdue as a fan, but I'm very happy for Tristan Newton being in El Paso during my high school years. So I'm happy for him. But I did pick UConn to win this game. My heart wanted Purdue since I'm a Big Ten guy, but I knew UConn was the better team. So I had UConn in my pick, but I wouldn't have been disappointed if somehow Purdue would pull off an upset. But I knew they would have to play a good second half, and they did not. So what do you got in this game, Monty?
Yeah, I think the key was we're just going to let Edey get his points. We got a big man. They have their own big man to bother him, but still a little bit of a mismatch. He did the best he could. A lot of Edey's points were off alley-oops and offensive rebounds. Not much you could do there. The guy's just too big, too talented, too strong. But, man, their game plan is we are not going to let them shoot the 3. We're just not going to let them.
Yeah, they cannot get that going at all.
I'm not sure how many attempts they averaged, but they only attempted 7, only made 1. So
wow.
That's just a defensive game plan that we're not going to even let them shoot it. We're going to let the big man score his points, and you just can't have that 3-point. That was a game plan, and it worked to perfection.
Yep. That's a very big point, Monty. That was one of Purdue's strengths, is to play inside out. Yep. Yeah. They couldn't do it. Yep.
And the matchups was there because UConn's guards, there's 3 of them, 6'6", 6'5", and 6'4".
They're bigger, yep.
Yeah. And Purdue's were 6'1", 6'4", and 6 foot. No contest. Yeah. That was the key right there. That was it. That was it right there. The guard play. That's what won it.
Yeah. And I told my dad the same thing. I texted my dad before the game. I said, hey, man, with the exception of Zach Edey, UConn is a lot bigger, especially at the guard position. My dad said, yep, you are absolutely right. And I knew that would be a problem. Yeah, and it was. Because Zach Edey was the only one that really had any size against UConn, a size advantage, or at least even with UConn, So, yeah. UConn is a very big team, man. Yeah. They are big. And they're well balanced. Just like last year, they were so freaking well balanced on offense and defense. They had 4 players in double digits. Tristan Newton led the way with 20 points, but Cam Spencer has 11 points. Stephon Castle, their fabulous freshman, has 15 points. Donovan Clingan, their big man, has 11. He's much more capable of scoring more than 11, but he did not. See, that's what UConn has that Purdue doesn't have. Like, Donovan Clingan does not have to score 30 points a game. Right. Like he does for Purdue to win. That is the difference. It's kind of like, say, with Iowa and, their women's team, like, poor, Caitlin Clark has to go off every night,
Yes.
Zach Edey has to go off every night. That's where both the Purdue men and the Iowa women, in my opinion, they need to get a little more depth. So if they do that, they can be solid, real solid. But I was happy for Purdue that they finally got over this curse, this March Madness curse.
Yeah.
They get all the way, to the championship game, almost pull off of Virginia, losing the first round last year with the 1 seed, getting the championship game. They almost pull off the Virginia Cavaliers. What they did in 2019. They got close, but they were facing a very good team, a very deep team. Just like UConn men just way too strong, man, way too strong.
And the credit to Bobby Hurley. I keep wanting to call him Bobby Hurley. Dan Hurley, just keeping the core of this team together. After losing 3 players, I believe, to the NBA.
Yep.
Still, they brought in Cam Spencer from Rutgers. Started transfer. Fit in perfect. Helped lead this team to a championship. I mean, like I said, the first week of the tournament, that this team has no weakness, none. Good defense, good offense. The 3-point shooting, so it's there. They're big, strong, athletic, complete. And that's why I picked them to run it back. I mean, I want my Tar Heels to do it, of course, but now this UConn team, loaded.
Yeah. In my money bracket, I picked UConn to win it, and in my work bracket, I picked North Carolina. So my work bracket got torched pretty quickly, unfortunately, when North Carolina lost in the Sweet 16. But my money bracket stayed alive because I did pick UConn to win it. So I didn't win the whole thing in my money bracket, but I did get 5th place out of like 40 guys. So I did okay. It was my best finish ever. And guess who got 1st place? Jack.
How about that?
For those of all you don't know, Jack Hudson did our show last year for March Madness. He got us started, so he's one of the pioneers of the show, you can say, since we're talking about pioneers in women's basketball. He's one of the pioneers of the show. He's my Navy buddy.
Good job, man.
Monty met him when he came out here this past summer to visit, so Monty knows Jack. And, of course, he did the show with us, so Monty knows him. Monty met him personally this summer, then he met him during our show last year. Yeah. So Jack won it. First time. Best finish of both Jack or me. Jack had never won before. Usually we never finished I think above 10th place out of like 40 or 50 guys, but we both did a lot better, and he won this whole thing. He won the whole thing. So congratulations to Jack, man. I was happy for him, but I was kind of pissed at the same time. Like, but no, he's a good friend, man. He downplays it, of course. He's like, that's his personality. He's always low key, man. But anyways, he did a good job. But next subject, man. Let's talk about Zach Edey and LeBron James' son, Bronny James, maybe possibly entering an NBA draft. But let's talk about Zach Edey first.
All right.
A lot of people think he's not going to be able to – he will not be good in the NBA. Like, he will be a bust. What do you think on that, Monty?
The eye test, from what I've seen, does need a little bit of work, a little bit of footwork. He does, and commentator mentioned it. There's an up and under move that along with that hook shot he has, and that's going to work great for him in the NBA if he could just keep practicing that shot, and it's going to work for him in the NBA, no problem. I saw him do an up and under shot that reminded me a lot of Kevin McHale. If he could develop that, the defense will be there. He'll be fine. I don't see him going in the first round, maybe late second round, but a bust, I don't see it. He'll be good enough to help some teams.
Yeah.
I don't see him as a bust.
I don't see him as a bust either. I think the reason why some people think that is because the way the NBA does not use the big man so much anymore.
Right.
But you look at all the really good college teams, they all had really good big men this year, in the men's side of college basketball. They played an inside-outside game, so I think Zach Edey's game could be good, effective for the NBA. One thing I know is he has really good endurance. He doesn't need to work on his speed maybe overall, but the guy has endurance. He could play all 40 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
He hardly comes out. He hardly came out for Purdue all tournament long. I think he probably has a total of 5 minutes of sitting out the whole entire tournament. Something crazy like that. I don't know, but that's my guess. It was very little. So he has the stamina. But the NBA game is a step or two faster than men's D1 college basketball. They're very fast. I wonder if he has an outside shot, and we just don't know it because he didn't need it in college. Does
Right.
he have a mid-range jump shot? If he has a mid-range jump shot or can develop that, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I think he'll be okay even without it. But if he gets a mid-range jump shot, he could be pretty darn good. But he'll give some teams some quality minutes. I don't think he's going to be a starter. I think he'll be a role player,
Yeah.
and he'll do some good things to help a team win. He's going to be a role player. He's not going to be going to probably any NBA All-Star games or anything like that. That's fine
No, I
though,
don't see it.
but that's fine. There's more ways to be effective.
Yes.
So he's just going to be a role player. That's how I
Yeah.
see him.
Yeah. He'll make the NBA. I wouldn't call him. I wouldn't say he'll be a bust. He'll help some teams out.
But his footwork did improve from last year to this year. I know it's that.
Mm-hmm.
Dwayne was alluded to it. He does have some very good footwork in the post. His footwork
Mm-hmm.
is very good in the post. But what we're talking about with footwork viewers is like footwork for like, can he guard the outside? Like, I think for big man, it's like lateral movements. He's got the footwork in the post, but you need really where some guys really struggle on defense in the NBA is like your side to side movements. You can get your ankles broke if you don't have good like lateral quickness in your feet. That's where his biggest struggle really might be. There's some guys that are going to make him look bad at times, but that can happen, to anybody because he's a big man. And
Right.
most big men do have a hard time coming out to the perimeter to guard faster guys. That's just the way it is. But there's some big men that are just freakish athletes, like freaking like, you know, Phoenix Suns player, Kevin Garnett is one, KD, Kevin Durant is another
Durant.
one. There's crazy good athletes at 7 feet tall. Zach
Yeah.
Edey isn't that, but
Yeah.
but
Jokic.
Jokic, he's not fast, but Jokic just has this weird ability
Yeah.
to get. Maybe Zach Edey would be like him because that
It's possible.
Jokic is not fast at all. He doesn't jump very
No.
high, but his shots, he knows how to get space. He knows how to make his shot go in somehow. He is a very good outside shooter, though. We just don't know how
Yeah.
well Zach Edey can shoot from outside because Jokic can hit threes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we'll see how Zach Edey does. But I'm rooting for him. I'm pulling for him. I
Yeah.
like him. He has a great attitude. And there's
Yeah.
one
I'll
thing
be watching.
there's one thing I like that he said after the post game press conference when he lost. Well, of course, when they lost UConn, he was very appreciative and very emotional about his coach, Matt Painter. He said Matt Painter took a chance on him. He was one of the very few guys that took a chance on him, and he wanted to get to this point. He said, "I waited 4 years to get to this game, the championship game." And Zach Edey has a good attitude. So any guy that has an attitude like Zach Edey, I'm gonna root for him, So
Yeah.
I think he'll be fine. I think one thing he just needs to continue to work hard. Hey Zach Edey, just do your thing, buddy.
Yeah.
If guys are talking bad about you, just shut it out and work hard, work on your game, and just try to get better. That's the only thing you can do. Shut out the outside noise,
Yeah.
negative noise, and just work on your game, man.
Yeah. Stay off social media, man. It'll
Yeah,
drive you nuts.
absolutely. LeBron James' son, Bronny James. Obviously, the first thing I'll say about him is one, I'm just glad he's okay health wise.
Yes. Number one. Absolutely.
That's number one because he huge scare in I think August, has cardiac arrest on the court at a USC men's basketball practice or workout or something. Scares everybody. Obviously scares LeBron James, his father, his mom, his whole entire family. They're scared, and rightfully so. Who freaking wouldn't be? I mean, he collapsed on the court, had a heart attack on the court. It set him back. He didn't get cleared to play for like 3 or 4 months after that. He comes back like kind of like around mid season, like late December, early January. I think he had his college debut game. It didn't really pan out for him this year, I think because of his health and because of being set back a couple of months. He only averaged 5 or 6 points a game. Do I think he's a great player? He is a legit McDonald's All-American, no doubt about it. And usually those guys have really good freshman years.
Yes.
He did not, but I think a lot of it is just because of what happened to him with the cardiac arrest. And I think there's the physical side, but there's also like the mental side, like how good was he mentally, coming back to the game after that happened. But I do not think he should enter the NBA draft this year. I think he needs to come back for a second year of college. I hope that's just a rumor, but there's all kinds of talk about him entering the NBA draft. Because I'm not saying he'll be a bust, but he could be, and I do not want him to be a bust. Because because I like him. I like LeBron James too. I know he wants to play with his dad. They want to be the first father and son combo to play in the NBA. I know that's probably a big reason why, but Bronny James, my advice to you is just play one more year in college, brother, and
Right.
have a bounce back sophomore year. Let everyone showcase your skills. We all know how good you are. You just need to showcase them next year in college. Then come out to the NBA. And there's a good chance your dad will still be playing. LeBron James is still in amazing shape for 40 years old. He's like the freaking Tom Brady of the NFL. He has a couple good years left if he stays healthy.
Yeah, still can play. Yeah.
He still plays at an NBA All-Star championship game level at 40 years old. It's freaking amazing. So
Yeah.
But what's your thoughts on this one, Monty?
Yeah, I echo your sentiments, man. It's not ready yet. He's not ready yet. What? A couple more seasons, maybe one more season, full season, uh, off season workout, where he has his chance to practice, develop, get better. From what I understand, he has a very good defensive game, almost an NBA level. Maybe that's what the rumors are all about. But he's going to need a little more than that. These guys are bigger, stronger, faster. The pressure of him being LeBron's son going to the NBA, these guards are going to go after him, kind of like they did Lonzo Ball because of his dad.
Yeah, yep.
All the talking did. The situation's a little bit different, but because he's LeBron's son, yeah, they're going to go after this kid. So now's not the time. He needs to stay at least one more year, maybe two.
Yeah, he might even need to stay 6 years. And what? There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
There's no shame at staying 3 or 4 years in college. Not everyone could be a one and done guy. There's no shame on him staying an extra year or two to develop his game to make sure he is indeed ready and not coming out too early. Because if you come out too early, it can really kill your whole entire career, and you'll be an afterthought very quickly. So I think he needs to stay, man. He needs to stay. But we'll see what happens here over the summer. So, but yeah, I'm just glad he's healthy. That's the biggest thing. He's healthy.
Number one.
Yeah, health is number one with him. So I don't know what LeBron James is telling his son. I have no idea, but can't tell LeBron James what to do. But if I was LeBron James, I would tell his son, like, son, stay one more year. That's just me. But yeah,
I agree.
yeah. But anyways, that's it from the Grid to the Rim Sports Talk Show. But in closing, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Let us know your thoughts and opinions, especially about Caitlin Clark and all this surrounding her. You know, her getting her flowers, her getting her flowers, and also her not getting her flowers. All this kind of like controversy kind of sort of surrounding her in the past couple of weeks. Let us know what you think if LeBron James' son, Bronny James, is ready to enter the NBA or not. Let us know what you think about Zach Edey. Let us know what you think about the championship games. Just let us know your thoughts and opinions. And it's all right if you disagree with us. I know we hit some controversial subjects today, but I think it was a good time to do it with me and Monty. So let us know your thoughts and opinions. And always thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing.
Yeah. Good March Madness on both ends, men's and women's. We got NBA coming up next, play-in games coming up next. Good subjects to talk about. So looking forward to your comments. Yeah, whether you agree with us or not, we welcome it. Thank you for your support, and looking forward to more.
I agree. Absolutely. All right. Peace out, viewers, fans, big ballers, shot callers.